Long before the world knew kings, empires, or written law, there was a land shaped by rivers and silence. In the vast cradle between the Tigris and the Euphrates, where reeds whispered in the warm wind and the earth cracked under the sun, humanity took its first great step toward civilization. This land would later be called Sumer. Night settles over the ancient plains of Mesopotamia. Imagine a time around 4500 BCE. The land is raw, untamed, yet filled with promise. Seasonal floods bring life to the soil, leaving behind rich layers of mud. It is here that early communities begin to settle, no longer wandering endlessly, but choosing to stay, to build, and to belong. The people of Sumer did not arrive suddenly. They emerged slowly, generation by generation, learning the rhythm of the rivers. They learned when to plant, when to harvest, and when to prepare for the floods. Over time, small farming villages grew larger, transforming into the world's first cities. Eridu, Uruk, Lagash, and Ur.as. The stars drift silently above. These early Sumerians work by torchlight, shaping mud into bricks. These sun-dried bricks become the foundation of homes, temples, and city walls. Stone is rare in this land, but ingenuity is abundant. From clay, they build a civilization. At the heart of each city rises a sacred structure, the ziggurat. These massive step temples tower over the flat land, believed to connect heaven and earth. To the Sumerians, the gods are ever present, controlling floods, harvests, illness, and fortune. Life is lived in careful balance with divine forces. Each city belongs to a god. Eridu honors Enki, god of water and wisdom. Uruk is devoted to Inanna, goddess of love and war. The people believe they are caretakers of the god's land, tasked with maintaining order through ritual, work, and obedience. As civilization grows more complex, so does the need for organization. Fields must be measured, grain must be stored, labor must be counted. Spoken memory is no longer enough. And so, around 3200 BCE, one of humanity's greatest inventions is born: writing. Using sharpened reeds, scribes press symbols into soft clay tablets. These marks, called cuneiform, begin as simple pictures representing goods like barley, sheep, and jars of oil. Over time, they evolve into a system capable of expressing ideas, names, prayers, and laws. In quiet rooms near temple complexes, young scribes train endlessly, memorizing symbols late into the night. Writing is power. It preserves knowledge beyond a single lifetime. Through these tablets, the Sumerians speak to us across thousands of years. With writing comes administration. Priests and officials manage food supplies, trade records, and labor assignments. Society becomes layered. At the top stand priests and rulers. Below them, craftsmen, farmers, merchants, and laborers. At the bottom, slaves, often prisoners of war or those burdened by debt. Despite these divisions, daily life follows a gentle rhythm. Farmers rise with the sun. Fishermen cast nets into slow-moving canals. Women grind grain, weave cloth, and care for children. The smell of bread baking fills narrow streets. Trade flourishes. Though Sumer lacks wood, stone, and metals, its merchants travel far, exchanging grain and textiles for copper, lapis lazuli, and timber. Long caravans cross deserts. Boats glide quietly along rivers under moonlight, carrying goods and stories from distant lands. As cities expand, so does competition. Water becomes precious. Borders are contested. Small conflicts turn into organized warfare. City-states build walls and train soldiers. Yet even in conflict, rules begin to form. Early concepts of law, justice, and authority. Leadership evolves from priestly figures into kings, believed to be chosen by the gods themselves. These kings do not claim to be divine, but rather guardians of divine order. Their duty is to protect the city, ensure prosperity, and appease the gods. At night, under endless stars, the Sumerians look upward in wonder. They map the skies, tracking planets and seasons. They divide time into units we still use today: 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 12 months. Their understanding of mathematics and astronomy quietly shapes the future. As the fires dim and the cities rest, the legacy of Sumer is already forming. Writing, cities, law, religion, and science, all begin here, in the soft mud of Mesopotamia. The world will never be the same, and as you drift towards sleep, remember, every modern civilization traces its roots back to these quiet riverbanks, where humanity first learned not just how to survive, but how to build a world. As the centuries pass quietly through the land of Sumer, the cities grow larger, and life becomes more complex. What began as simple farming communities along riverbanks now transforms into powerful city-states, each with its own identity, traditions, and ambitions. The rivers still flow gently, but beneath their calm surface, competition and change are stirring. By around 3000 BCE, Sumer is no longer a land of small villages. Towering walls surround cities like Uruk, Lagash, Kish, and Ur. These walls are not only for protection, but for pride. Each city sees itself as the center of the world, favored by its patron God. At the heart of every city, the temple remains central. Yet slowly, authority begins to shift. While priests still guide rituals and communicate with the gods, a new figure rises to prominence, the Lugal, the king. Unlike later rulers who claim divine status, Sumerian kings rule as chosen servants of the gods, tasked with maintaining order on earth. The king's responsibilities are many. He oversees irrigation canals, commands soldiers, settles disputes, and ensures that temples and gods are properly honored. His power is not absolute, it is balanced by religious authority and tradition. Still, the presence of a king marks a turning point in human governance. As night settles over the cities, scribes record royal deeds on clay tablets. These records tell of battles fought, canals dug, and temples built. Through writing, kings secure their legacy, hoping their names will endure long after their bones return to dust, but peace is fragile. Water, the lifeblood of Sumer, is also its greatest source of conflict. Rivers shift. Canals dry up. Fields wither. When one city diverts water upstream, another suffers downstream. Disputes quickly turn into armed conflict. The earliest known wars in human history unfold across these flat plains. Soldiers march with spears and shields made of leather and bronze. Chariots, pulled by donkeys, rumble across the land. Warfare is brutal, but ritualized, often accompanied by prayers and offerings to the gods. One of the earliest recorded rulers, King Eannatum of Lagash, leaves behind inscriptions describing victories over neighboring Umma. His words, carved into stone, speak of divine favor and rightful rule. To the Sumerians, war is not just a political act, it is a cosmic struggle, guided by the will of the gods. Despite conflict, life within the cities continues with steady rhythm. Craftsmen shape metal into tools and weapons. Potters fire clay vessels. Builders repair walls and temples. Markets buzz softly with trade and conversation. Even in times of war, daily life must go on. Social structure becomes more defined. At the top stand kings and high priests. Beneath them are officials, scribes, and merchants. Farmers and laborers form the backbone of society. Slaves, though present, are often integrated into households rather than separated entirely. Law begins to take clearer shape. Disputes over land, trade, marriage, and injury require resolution. Though the famous Code of Hammurabi will come much later, the Sumerians lay the foundation for written law. Justice is seen as a divine principle, upheld by human rulers. Religion remains deeply woven into every aspect of life. Each city-state serves its god through festivals, offerings, and processions. Statues of deities are treated as living beings, fed, clothed, and honored daily. To neglect a god is to invite disaster. As kings rise and fall, stories begin to circulate, tales of heroic rulers, divine interventions, and catastrophic floods. These stories are passed down orally at first, then written on clay tablets. Among them emerges the legendary figure of Gilgamesh, king of Uruk. Gilgamesh is remembered as both a tyrant and a hero, a man of great strength who seeks meaning beyond power. His story reflects the growing awareness of mortality, friendship, and the limits of human ambition. Through such myths, the Sumerians explore what it means to be human. Trade networks expand even further. Sumerian influence reaches Anatolia, the Indus Valley, and the Persian Gulf. Goods, ideas, and beliefs travel alongside merchants. Sumer becomes not just a civilization, but a cultural heart whose influence spreads far beyond its borders, yet the balance of power is constantly shifting. Some cities rise, others decline. Floods destroy fields. Droughts test endurance. Internal rebellions challenge authority. Through it all, the Sumerians adapt, rebuild, and persist. As the night deepens and the cities rest, the flickering lights of temples and palaces glow softly against the darkness. The age of city-states is firmly established. Kings rule, armies march, laws are written, and history itself is now being recorded. This is humanity learning how to govern, how to fight, how to organize power, and how to tell its own story. And as you drift further into sleep, let these ancient cities fade gently into the darkness, knowing that their struggles, ambitions, and dreams laid the foundation for every kingdom that would follow. As the cities of Sumer grow older and their walls rise higher, the people look not only to kings for guidance, but to the heavens above. In a world shaped by floods, droughts, and uncertainty, the Sumerians seek meaning in the unseen forces they believe govern all life. Their universe is alive with gods, spirits, and divine purpose. To the Sumerians, the world is not random. Every storm, every harvest, every illness carries intention. The gods are many, each ruling over a specific domain. Anu, god of the sky, watches from above. Enlil, lord of wind and authority, commands destiny. Enki, god of water and wisdom, guides humanity with knowledge and creativity. Together, they shape the order of the cosmos. Each city honors its patron deity, believing its prosperity depends on divine favor. Temples are not merely places of worship, they are centers of economy, learning, and social life. Offerings of grain, beer, and animals are presented daily. Priests chant softly, their voices echoing through stone corridors lit by oil lamps. The gods, however, are not distant or gentle beings. They possess human emotions, jealousy, anger, love, and pride. They argue among themselves, make mistakes, and change their minds. In many ways, the gods of Sumer reflect the people who worship them. Creation itself is told through story. In Sumerian myth, the world begins as a vast, watery chaos. From this emerges order, shaped by divine will. Humans are created not as equals to the gods, but as servants, tasked with labor so the gods may rest. Life, though precious, is never fully secure. At night, elders gather to share stories passed down for generations. These myths explain the unknown, offering comfort and caution. Among them is the tale of a great flood, sent by the gods to cleanse the world. One man, warned in secret, builds a boat and survives, an echo of a story that will appear in many cultures long after Sumer fades. From these myths emerges one of humanity's oldest literary masterpieces, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Written on clay tablets, the epic tells the story of Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, a man 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. Powerful, proud, and restless, he rules with unmatched strength, yet struggles with meaning. At first, Gilgamesh is a tyrant, abusing his power and exhausting his people. In response, the gods create Enkidu, a wild man born of nature, to challenge him. When Gilgamesh and Enkidu meet, they fight fiercely, shaking the walls of Uruk. But neither prevails. Instead, a deep friendship is born. Together, Gilgamesh and Enkidu embark on heroic quests, defeating monsters, defying gods, and seeking glory. Their adventures are filled with danger and triumph, yet beneath the excitement lies a deeper question: what gives life meaning? When Enkidu falls ill and dies as punishment from the gods, Gilgamesh is devastated. For the first time, he faces the reality of death. His grief transforms him. No longer satisfied with power or fame, he sets out on a desperate journey in search of immortality. Gilgamesh travels beyond the edges of the known world, crossing mountains, deserts, and the cosmic sea. He meets Utnapishtim, the survivor of the Great Flood, who was granted eternal life by the gods. But immortality, Gilgamesh learns, is not meant for humans. Though offered a chance at everlasting life, Gilgamesh ultimately fails. He returns to Uruk empty-handed, yet wiser. He understands that mortality gives life its value, and that one's legacy lies not in eternal life, but in what is built, taught, and remembered, the Epic of Gilgamesh becomes more than a story. It is a reflection of the Sumerian soul, its hopes, fears, and acceptance of human limits. Through myth, the Sumerians confront the same questions humans still ask today. Religion influences every moment of daily life. Dreams are believed to carry divine messages. Omens are read in the movement of stars, the flight of birds, and the organs of sacrificed animals. Priests serve as interpreters between worlds, offering guidance in uncertain times. Festivals mark the calendar, celebrating planting seasons, harvests, and divine victories. Music fills temple courtyards. Drums beat softly into the night. For a moment, the boundary between gods and humans feels thin, yet fear always lingers. The gods can be unpredictable. A neglected ritual or broken oath may bring disaster. This belief fosters humility and obedience, shaping a culture deeply aware of its fragility. As the night grows still, clay tablets rest quietly in temple archives. Within them are prayers, hymns, myths, and wisdom, humanity's earliest attempts to understand existence itself. And as you drift towards sleep, remember that in these ancient stories, told under starlit skies, the Sumerians were not so different from us. They searched for meaning, feared loss, cherished friendship, and wondered what remains after life fades. Their myths still whisper across time, reminding us that the journey to understand ourselves began long ago, in the quiet cities between two rivers. As the sun rises gently over the flat plains of Sumer, daily life begins anew. Beyond the temples, palaces, and city walls, it is the rhythm of ordinary people that sustains civilization. Farmers, craftsmen, merchants, and families move quietly through routines shaped by nature, tradition, and necessity. Most Sumerians live simple lives. Their homes are built from mud bricks, clustered closely together along narrow streets. Roofs are flat, offering a place to sleep during hot nights. Inside, rooms are modest, furnished with woven mats, clay jars, and wooden stools. Life is practical, grounded, and closely tied to the land. Each morning, farmers walk toward the fields, guided by the flow of irrigation canals. These canals are the lifelines of Sumer, carefully planned and maintained. Without them, the land would quickly return to desert. Community labor ensures their upkeep, reminding everyone that survival depends on cooperation. Barley is the most important crop, used to make bread and beer, staples of the Sumerian diet. Dates, onions, lentils, and sesame are also grown. Livestock such as sheep and goats provide wool, milk, and meat. Fishing supplements the diet, with nets cast into rivers and canals. In workshops across the cities, craftsmen practice skills passed down through generations. Potters shape clay on simple wheels, firing vessels in open kilns. Weavers produce textiles from wool and flax, creating garments worn by all classes. Metalworkers melt copper and bronze, forming tools, weapons, and ornaments. Trade remains central to Sumerian life. Merchants travel long distances, exchanging surplus grain and textiles for resources the land lacks. Contracts and receipts are written on clay tablets, sealed with cylinder seals rolled across wet clay. These seals, engraved with intricate scenes, serve as signatures and symbols of identity. Women play a vital role in Sumerian society. They manage households, weave cloth, brew beer, and participate in trade. Some women serve as priestesses, scribes, or business owners. Though society is patriarchal, women possess legal rights, including the ability to own property and engage in contracts. Children grow up surrounded by work and learning. Young boys destined to become scribes attend schools called adubas, where they practice writing cuneiform for years. Education is strict, often harsh, but highly respected. Knowledge offers a path to status and stability. Beyond daily labor, the Sumerians are remarkable innovators. Their understanding of mathematics shapes the future. They develop a base 60 number system, still reflected today in our measurement of time and angles. Through observation and calculation, they solve problems of land measurement, construction, and trade. Astronomy becomes another area of study. By observing the movement of stars and planets, Sumerian scholars track seasons and predict celestial events. Their sky is filled with meaning, believed to reflect divine messages. The heavens serve as both a calendar and a source of wonder. Medicine blends practical knowledge with spiritual belief. Healers use herbs, bandages, and basic surgical techniques, while also reciting incantations to drive away illness-causing spirits. Health is seen as a balance between the physical and the divine. The wheel, one of humanity's most transformative inventions, becomes a tool of daily life in Sumer. Used for pottery and transport, it reshapes trade and mobility. The plow improves agriculture, allowing fields to be worked more efficiently. Small innovations quietly reshape society. Time itself is carefully organized. Days are divided into hours, months into seasons. Festivals and rituals follow precise calendars, aligning human life with cosmic order. Even sleep and work are shaped by these rhythms. Entertainment and leisure also find their place. Music fills homes and temples, played on harps, lyres, and flutes. Games involving dice and boards offer moments of relaxation. Storytelling continues to pass down history, myth, and wisdom. Despite progress, life remains fragile. Floods destroy crops. Drought brings hunger. Disease spreads easily. Death is a familiar presence. Unlike later civilizations, the Sumerians do not imagine a joyful afterlife. The underworld is a shadowy place, making life itself all the more precious. This awareness of mortality drives a desire to build, record, and innovate. Clay tablets preserve transactions, prayers, medical texts, and scientific observations. Through writing, knowledge is shared across generations, allowing progress to continue. As night falls, families gather inside their homes. Lamps flicker softly. Meals are shared. Outside, the city quiets. The canals reflect moonlight, and distant temple chants fade into silence. The achievements of Sumer are not loud or dramatic in daily life, yet they form the foundation of human civilization. Writing, math, science, law, and organized society all grow quietly from these routines, and as you drift towards sleep, imagine the gentle sounds of an ancient city settling into rest, footsteps fading, fires dimming, stars turning slowly overhead. In the simplicity of daily life, the Sumerians shaped the future of the world, one careful step at a time. As Sumerian cities grow in size and complexity, the need for order becomes unavoidable. Thousands of people live side by side, sharing water, land, labor, and belief. Without rules, chaos would quickly follow. And so, quietly and carefully, the Sumerians begin shaping one of humanity's most lasting ideas, the concept of law. In the earliest days, justice is guided by tradition and divine authority. Disputes are settled by elders, priests, or city officials, who interpret the will of the gods. Right and wrong are not merely human concerns, they are matters of cosmic balance. To break an oath or violate a contract is to offend the gods themselves. As writing becomes common, law begins to take physical form. Clay tablets record agreements, land boundaries, debts, marriages, and punishments. These records bring consistency and memory to justice. What is written cannot be easily denied or forgotten. One of the earliest known legal reforms comes from Urukagina, ruler of Lagash around 2400 BCE. His reforms seek to protect the poor from exploitation by powerful officials and priests. Though limited in scope, these laws reveal a growing awareness of social responsibility. Law in Sumer is not equal for all. Social status matters deeply. Penalties differ depending on whether the offender is noble, commoner, or slave. Yet even within this hierarchy, the idea that rules apply to society as a whole marks a major shift in human thinking. Property rights are carefully defined. Land ownership, rental agreements, and inheritance are recorded in detail. Fields, orchards, and houses are measured and described. Disputes over boundaries are common, and written evidence becomes the key to resolution. Trade law develops alongside commerce. Merchants rely on contracts that specify quantities, prices, and delivery dates. Failure to meet obligations results in fines or loss of reputation. Trust, backed by written law, allows trade networks to expand far beyond city walls. Family law governs marriage, divorce, and inheritance. Marriage is both a social and economic agreement, often arranged between families. Dowries are recorded. Divorce is permitted, though consequences vary by gender and circumstance. Children's rights, especially regarding inheritance, are carefully outlined. Punishment in Sumer reflects a desire for balance rather than mercy. Fines, forced labor, or physical penalties are common. Justice is meant to restore order, not necessarily to rehabilitate. Still, many punishments aim to compensate victims rather than simply punish offenders. Oaths play a central role in legal life. Sworn before the gods, an oath carries immense weight. Breaking one risks not only legal punishment but divine wrath. This belief reinforces honesty in a society without modern enforcement systems. Courts operate in public spaces, often near temples or city gates. Witnesses are called. Evidence is presented. Judges, usually officials or elders, listen carefully. Their rulings are recorded, creating precedents that shape future decisions. Law also serves rulers. Kings use legal authority to strengthen control, legitimize power, and maintain stability. By presenting themselves as guardians of justice, kings reinforce their role as chosen by the gods to maintain order. Religion and law remain inseparable. Many laws are framed as divinely inspired, reinforcing obedience. Temples act as legal institutions, storing records and hosting trials. The gods are believed to watch every decision, ensuring fairness or punishment. Through these systems, the Sumerians begin defining responsibility, accountability, and fairness. Though imperfect and unequal, their legal structures represent a monumental step toward organized society. The influence of Sumerian law spreads across Mesopotamia. Later civilizations, including the Akkadians and Babylonians, build upon these foundations. The famous Code of Hammurabi owes much to earlier Sumerian traditions. As night falls over the cities, clay tablets rest quietly in archives. Each tablet represents a moment when humans chose order over chaos, record over memory, structure over impulse. In these laws, we see humanity learning to live together, to manage conflict, protect resources, and define justice. And as you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the quiet of an ancient courtroom, the soft scratch of a stylus on clay, the steady belief that even in a fragile world, order can be shaped by human hands. From these early laws, the path toward justice begins. As the centuries move quietly forward, the land of Sumer enters a time of growing uncertainty. The cities still stand, their temples rising above canals and fields, but the balance that once held them together begins to strain. Competition turns sharper, and the sound of conflict becomes more frequent across the plains. War has always existed among the Sumerian city-states, but now it changes in scale. Small disputes over water and land give way to prolonged campaigns and shifting alliances. Cities no longer fight only for survival, but for dominance. Power becomes something to be expanded, not merely defended. Armies grow larger and more organized. Soldiers train regularly, equipped with bronze weapons, helmets, and shields. Chariots move faster across the flat terrain, carrying warriors into battle. Warfare becomes a constant presence, shaping politics and daily life alike. In times of conflict, the authority of kings grows stronger. Leaders justify war as the will of the gods, claiming divine support for conquest. Victory is seen as proof of divine favor, while defeat signals anger from the heavens. Religion and warfare are deeply intertwined. As Sumerian cities exhaust themselves through endless conflict, a new force rises from the north. These people speak a different language, one that is not Sumerian. They are known as the Akkadians. Unlike the Sumerians, the Akkadians are not organized into independent city-states. Instead, they move toward a unified vision, one ruler, one empire. At the center of this transformation stands a remarkable figure, Sargon of Akkad. Sargon's origins are wrapped in legend. According to later stories, he was born in secrecy, set adrift in a basket upon a river, and raised by a gardener. Whether myth or truth, the story reflects the extraordinary rise that would follow. Around 2334 BCE, Sargon begins a series of campaigns that will change Mesopotamia forever. He conquers one Sumerian city after another, not destroying them, but absorbing them into a greater whole. For the first time, the region is unified under a single ruler. Sargon does not erase Sumerian culture. Instead, he adopts it. He preserves Sumerian religion, writing, and administration, blending them with Akkadian language and identity. Cuneiform continues, now used to write both languages side by side. This fusion marks the birth of the world's first true empire. Roads connect distant regions. Standardized administration replaces local autonomy. Power flows from the center outward, rather than rising independently from each city. For the Sumerians, this change is profound. Their cities still exist, their temples still function, but independence is lost. Kings become governors, answering to a distant authority. The age of the city-state begins to fade, resistance does not disappear. Rebellions break out. Cities attempt to reclaim autonomy. Sargon responds with force, reinforcing his control through military presence and strategic appointments. Order is maintained, but at great cost. Life under Akkadian rule continues much as before for ordinary people. Farmers tend fields. Merchants trade. Priests perform rituals. Yet beneath the surface, a new identity is forming, one that blends Sumerian heritage with imperial structure. The Akkadian language gradually spreads, becoming the language of power. Sumerian, though still sacred and scholarly, begins a slow retreat. It survives in temples, schools, and literature, even as everyday speech changes. After Sargon's death, his empire struggles to maintain stability. His successors face constant rebellion, environmental challenges, and external threats. The empire's strength depends heavily on military force, making it vulnerable. Eventually, the Akkadian Empire weakens. Droughts, invasions, and internal collapse take their toll. The once unified land fractures again, allowing Sumerian culture a brief resurgence in what historians call the Sumerian Renaissance. Yet the world has changed forever. The idea of empire, of centralized power ruling diverse peoples, has taken root. Sumer's legacy now lives within something larger than itself. As night falls over the ancient land, the cities rest under new banners. The gods are still honored, the tablets still written, the canals still flowing. But the age of independent Sumer is ending, and as you drift towards sleep, imagine the quiet after battle, the dust settling over fields, the realization that history moves forward not in sudden endings, but in gradual transformation. The Sumerians did not vanish in a moment. They were absorbed, remembered, and carried forward, woven into the fabric of every empire that followed. As time flows onward like the rivers of Mesopotamia, the land of Sumer enters its final chapter as an independent civilization. The great cities still stand, their temples casting long shadows at dusk, but the world around them is changing. Empires rise and fall, and the Sumerians, once pioneers of civilization, now face the slow and quiet challenge of survival. After the collapse of the Akkadian Empire, Sumer experiences a brief revival known as the Third Dynasty of Ur, around 2100 BCE. For a moment, Sumerian kings reclaim authority, restore order, and revive ancient traditions. Laws are codified, temples rebuilt, and administration strengthened. King Ur-Nammu emerges as a central figure of this renaissance. He establishes one of the earliest known law codes, emphasizing justice, compensation, and social balance. His reign brings stability, and the cities of Ur, Uruk, and Lagash flourish once more. Yet this revival is fragile. Environmental stress weakens agriculture. Salinization from over-irrigation reduces crop yields. Rivers shift their courses. The land that once sustained abundance begins to resist human control. At the same time, external pressures increase. Nomadic groups such as the Amorites migrate into Mesopotamia. From the east, the Elamites grow stronger. Trade routes become unstable. Borders are difficult to defend. The Sumerian state relies heavily on bureaucracy and centralized control. While effective in times of stability, it struggles during crisis. Records grow silent as disruptions increase. Taxes become harder to collect. Loyalty fades. By around 2004 BCE, the city of Ur falls to invading forces. The Third Dynasty collapses. Sumer no longer exists as a political power. No dramatic end marks its passing, only the slow erosion of control. Yet Sumer does not disappear. Its people remain. Its language, though no longer spoken daily, continues in temples, schools, and official texts. Sumerian becomes a sacred and scholarly language, preserved by later civilizations much like Latin in medieval Europe. Babylonian and Assyrian scribes continue to copy Sumerian texts, myths, hymns, medical guides, mathematical tables. Through this preservation, Sumer lives on beyond its political death. The legacy of Sumer spreads quietly through time. Concepts first developed in Sumer, writing, law, urban planning, astronomy, and administration, become the foundation upon which later empires build. The wheel continues to turn. Time continues to be measured in base 60. Legal systems retain echoes of Sumerian justice. Even stories like the Great Flood and the Epic of Gilgamesh find new life in later traditions. Sumer's influence reaches far beyond Mesopotamia. Through trade and conquest, its ideas travel to Egypt, the Indus Valley, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Civilization becomes a shared human inheritance, not the possession of one people. As centuries pass, the physical cities of Sumer slowly decay. Mud brick structures crumble. Canals fill with silt. The once busy streets fall silent. Wind and sand reclaim the land, yet beneath the earth, clay tablets remain. Buried in ruins, they wait patiently for rediscovery. Thousands of years later, archaeologists will uncover them, hearing ancient voices once more. In these tablets, we find contracts, prayers, poems, and records of everyday life. They speak not of conquest alone, but of family, work, hope, and fear. They reveal a people deeply aware of their place in a fragile world. The Sumerians understood impermanence. Their myths taught that even gods could be unpredictable, that life was fleeting, and that legacy mattered more than immortality. In this understanding lies their greatest gift. They taught humanity how to record knowledge, how to organize society, and how to reflect on existence itself. As night settles over the ruins of ancient cities, the stars above remain unchanged. The same stars once watched over farmers, kings, and storytellers, and as you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the quiet earth covering these cities, preserving their memory. Though their voices are faint, they still speak. Through the systems we use, the stories we tell, and the time we measure, Sumer did not end. It became part of us. For thousands of years, the cities of Sumer lay silent beneath the earth. Wind swept across empty plains. Rivers changed their courses. Names like Uruk and Uar faded from memory, surviving only as echoes in ancient texts whose meanings were long forgotten. The world moved on, unaware that beneath the soil rested the origins of civilization itself. Then, in the modern age, curiosity awakened. Travelers, scholars, and explorers began to wonder about the ancient lands described in the Bible and classical writings. They searched the deserts of Mesopotamia, guided by fragments of history and quiet intuition. In the early 19th century, the first spades broke the earth. Mounds once thought to be natural hills revealed themselves as buried cities. Brick by brick, layer by layer, the past began to rise again. Archaeologists uncovered massive ziggurats, crumbling city walls, and long-abandoned streets. But the most remarkable discoveries were small and unassuming: clay tablets, hardened by time, etched with mysterious symbols. At first, no one could read them. The marks were neither alphabet nor picture, but something entirely different. For decades, the tablets remained silent, their stories locked away. Then came the breakthrough. Through patience and comparison, scholars began deciphering cuneiform. Names emerged. Numbers took shape. Slowly, the voices of Sumer returned to life. What they revealed astonished the world. These tablets spoke of contracts, laws, love songs, medical treatments, mathematical equations, and cosmic myths. They revealed a people who had measured the heavens, organized cities, and reflected deeply on existence itself. The Sumerians were no longer a legend. They were real. The rediscovery of the Epic of Gilgamesh was especially profound. Found scattered across broken tablets, the epic was carefully reconstructed. Its themes of friendship, grief, and mortality resonated across millennia, reminding modern readers that human emotions have changed little over time. As excavations continued, thousands more tablets were uncovered. Libraries emerged from the dust. Temple archives revealed detailed records of daily life, wages paid, goods exchanged, prayers offered, these were not the writings of distant gods or kings alone. They were the voices of ordinary people. Modern science benefited greatly from these discoveries. Historians rewrote timelines. Linguists uncovered the structure of one of humanity's oldest languages. Astronomers traced early star catalogs. Legal scholars recognized the roots of justice. Museums around the world became guardians of this rediscovered world. Behind glass cases, clay tablets rested once more, this time protected, studied, and admired, yet the work was never complete. Many tablets remain unread even today. Others are broken, their messages incomplete. The past still whispers, waiting patiently. Rediscovery also brought responsibility. Wars, looting, and neglect have threatened ancient sites. Entire chapters of history have been lost to time once again. The fragile nature of clay mirrors the fragility of memory itself. Still, Sumer endures. In classrooms, students learn that history did not begin with empires of stone and steel, but with mud bricks and reed pens. They learn that writing began not as poetry, but as record-keeping, simple, practical, human. Through Sumer, humanity learns its own beginnings. As night settles in the modern world, the same stars once observed by Sumerian astronomers continue their silent journey across the sky. Time stretches, unbroken, and as you drift towards sleep, imagine the quiet moment when a long-lost tablet is first touched by human hands again. Dust falls away. Symbols emerge. A voice speaks after 5,000 years of silence. The past is not gone. It is only waiting to be remembered. As the long journey through ancient Sumer comes to a close, we return once more to the quiet land between two rivers. The cities are gone, their walls softened by time, their streets buried beneath layers of earth. Yet their presence lingers, not in stone, but in the foundations of the world we live in today. Sumer matters not because it was powerful, but because it was first. In the gentle shaping of mud into bricks, humanity learned how to build lasting communities. In the careful carving of symbols into clay, people learned how to speak across time. These were not acts of conquest or ambition, but of necessity and curiosity. Writing, one of humanity's greatest achievements, was born in Sumer not to tell stories, but to count grain, record labor, and manage life. From these simple beginnings came literature, science, law, and history itself. Every book, every document, every message carries a distant echo of those first marks in clay. The Sumerians taught us how to organize society. Cities with laws, officials, courts, and shared responsibility became models for all that followed. Justice, though imperfect, became something written, remembered, and debated rather than forgotten or ignored. They taught us how to measure the world. Time divided into hours and minutes. Circles measured into degrees. Calendars aligned with the stars. These systems still guide our days and nights, quietly connecting us to minds that lived 5,000 years ago. In their myths, the Sumerians explored questions that remain timeless. Why do we suffer? Why do we die? What gives life meaning? Through the Epic of Gilgamesh, they accepted a truth still difficult today, that immortality is not found in endless life, but in what we leave behind. They understood that human life is fragile. Floods could erase harvests. Empires could collapse. Gods could be unpredictable. Yet rather than surrender to fear, they chose to build, record, and remember. Even their decline holds meaning. Sumer did not fall in a single moment. It faded, absorbed into larger cultures, its language preserved by scholars, its ideas carried forward by others. Civilization, they showed us, is not a single flame, but a torch passed from hand to hand. In the modern world, we move quickly. Technology changes daily. Time feels compressed. Yet beneath this speed lies a structure shaped long ago. When we check the time, sign a contract, tell a story, or look up at the stars, we unknowingly follow paths first walked by the Sumerians. Their story reminds us that progress begins quietly. Not with empires, but with communities. Not with conquest, but with cooperation. Not with certainty, but with questions. The Sumerians were not perfect. Their society was unequal. Their world was harsh. But they dared to imagine something more than survival. They imagined order, meaning, and connection. As night settles once more over the land between the rivers, the stars continue their slow, eternal movement. The same sky that inspired ancient astronomers watches over us still, and as you drift into sleep, remember that you are part of a long human story, one that began not in steel or glass, but in clay and water, under an open sky. The Sumerians are gone, but their legacy remains, in time itself, quietly counting each moment as it passes. Rest now, knowing that the world you wake into tomorrow was shaped, in part, by voices that first spoke in the soft mud of ancient Sumer.